Hey, Chris Liepe here with how to dial in the sound of Jared Leto, 30 Seconds to Mars, song Kings and Queens. In defense of our dreams, yeah, we were the kings and queens of promise. We were the victims of ourselves. Maybe the children of the lesser God between heaven and hell, heaven and hell. Jared's got a very distinct style and vocal disposition, really fun to dive into and dissect. Part of it is his approach, and part of it is the way it's produced. And learning how production and approach fit together is so key. For this particular exercise, I'm working in Logic Pro using mainly stock Logic plugins. I'm working with the real 30 Seconds to Mars backing track and stems, which is super awesome. And I'll A/B back and forth between mine and Jared's so you can hear the differences but also the similarities. Here's Jared in this particular passage. In defense of our dreams, we were the kings and queens of promise. We were the victims of ourselves. Maybe the children of our lesser God between heaven and hell, heaven and hell. Ugh, great performance. A lot of the vocal techniques that I use and demonstrate in this context are not easy. They're not for beginners. If you'd like more help with developing some of these textures and sounds with your voice, click the link below and join my free voice course. I'll help you start to get there. Notice all the sighs. Defense. He's constantly sort of letting out air, and sometimes this creates a sort of grit. Sometimes it's just a sigh, sometimes it's a squeak, but sometimes, like at the end here on heaven, that's not heaven, it's heaven and hell. There's That's a huge trait of Jared's singing, and it happens all over the place in a little bit different way here at the beginning. In defense. It starts with fry. In defense. Right? Then, listen to how he goes into it here. That's a little bit more exaggerated on my end. Our dreams, in defense of our dreams. He'll even sigh when he gets to the top of whatever line he's doing, and it creates this sort of desperate breakup sound. The other thing about his approach I want to point out here, going into the chorus. We were the kings and queens. Kangs and quains, right? That allows for a really bellish sound. Not, we were the kings and queens of promise. No, we were the kings and queens. Very bellish up there instead of queens. Very easy to have this open sound with those open vowels. And the last thing I want to say about his approach is notice his we were. We were the kings. You get this, we were the kings and queens. It's not, we were, the typical guy coming up in the karaoke bar singing this song would pick up the mic and, we were the kings and queens of promise. And he might hit all the notes, but if we don't get this, we were the kings, the children of, we don't get that sort of desperation, the gesturing, almost vomiting out these notes and passages with our voice. We're not going to get into this style of Jared Leto. That's really important. So now that I've talked about his approach, let's look at the production. And it's going to fill out things quite a bit. Here's my version in isolation. In defense of our dreams, yeah, we were the kings and queens of promise. We were the victims of ourselves. Maybe the children of a lesser God between heaven and hell, heaven and hell. By track, there is a total of 5 tracks that I've used here. Here's the lead vocal, dry. We'll build the effects on in a second. This is without anything on it at all, straight from the mic. In defense of our dreams, yeah, we were the kings and queens of promise. You can hear a little bit of saturation. That's coming from my Manly Core preamp. It's compressing a little bit as we go in with a little bit of limiting, so it gets you that nice in-your-face sound. And then I'm using the Sheps Omni-channel to compress a little bit more in several different ways. So as we look at this plugin work here, in defense of our dreams, you can see that I've got limiting going on as the last part of the chain. I've got compression going on. I'm using a VCA compressor here in this channel strip, and I'm boosting the highs about 6 dB to give it a little bit more presence. We're boosting that at 8K, and then I'm rolling off the low end at about 57. There's not much below 60 hertz. Or really anything, I would imagine, in my voice. I'm getting rid of some of that rumble. And you can hear that in Jared's track as well, that those sort of things really pick up that mic quite a bit and rumble a little bit. We're rolling some of that off. I'm using a little bit of compression and saturation on the way in, and then I'm using saturation, more compression, and limiting, and a little bit of de-essing. So we are compressing or dynamically altering this signal 5 total times. It is far better when you're recording your vocals. And this is certainly true for how he recorded his, but it's true for how a lot of great vocals are recorded. You do a little bit with a lot of different tools, as opposed to just using one compressor, or as opposed to just using a limiter, or even just one EQ. This is a better approach because you can fine-tune what each little plugin does well and get certain sonic qualities to jump out. Even though this particular plugin is one plugin, it's a channel strip, and there's lots of different stages of saturation, EQ, compression, limiting, all affecting the dynamics. We're not just using the compressor or a single compressor or anything to get this sort of sound. Let's talk a little bit about arranging, and then we'll go to the ambient effects. We have this harmony down here, which is so cool. And I added that. That's not in the original. That's just an improvisational, inspirational thing that I did just sort of as I was tracking. It just felt right. But this harmony, even notice how even sigh-y the harmony is. That's in the same character as this lead. Dreams. And then we've got this neat delay thing happening down here where I have copied and pasted this, dreams, and we've put it here. Dreams, 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 dreams. There are two different tempo delays on this, and I'll cover those delays in just a second. Then down here, we've got another added thing where I have copied and pasted this section of the voice down here, and I have band limited it, just like I band limited this one. It's the same take, but what I've done is I have narrowed with filters, I've narrowed the sound just like they did. And it's an art to get those just right and tweak those so that you get the right amount of brilliance out of it. The double. We were the kings and queens of promise. We were the victims of ourselves. Notice I am not singing the ends of some words. Now, no tuning of any kind was used in my performance, and that helps bring out the variances between the doubles. We were the kings and queens of promise. Now, when I only have one guy, one main performer, promise, doing the strong ends of the words, and I leave that off of my doubled performance. We were the victims of ourselves. Right? We don't have s at the end there. And even here, this ends beforehand. God, between heaven and hell. It helps that lead vocal take the lead, and you don't have this flamming of different sibilants and different percussive elements of the vocal performance. That's really, really important. And even on the harmonies, you can hear it. Heaven and hell. In heaven and hell. Heaven and hell. The lead vocal is clearly the most aggressive of all of them. The other ones are providing melodic texture. That's important to realize when you're laying down background vocals. Let's go over the effects real quick. Now, I mentioned I was using a tempo delay. This is a stock Logic delay. I'm running it as an 8th note delay, which is how they have it set in the 30 Seconds to Mars session. It's locked to the tempo of the session. Well, how did I lock my session to the 30 Seconds to Mars files? Well, it's really simple in Logic. I can take one of the prominent rhythm tracks like the kick drum, and I can use Logic's Smart Tempo feature, and it will see what the tempo of the song is. It will analyze the rhythm or the file, and it will create the tempo. And you can see it rounds. We have 83 rounded. It's actually 82.5 when it analyzed. And what we can do is we can have it analyze that tempo, and then with a very simple function, we can just say apply region tempo to project tempo. And then it syncs. You don't have to tap anything. You don't have to guess. It just automatically works with it. So if you have some strong rhythmic elements inside your session, even if you haven't recorded to a click, you can lock it to the tempo and work with tempo delays. And your tempo delays really do need to be locked to whatever tempo you're working with so that you don't have drag. If you're using ambient delays, sometimes you can get away with having them not locked, but particularly in this case where you have these very calculated repeats, you absolutely need it to be locked. So you notice if you listen to the delay, it sounds different, more band limited. In heaven and hell. You hear more highs out of it. But I'm not limiting within the plugin. I'm actually running a separate channel EQ on the delay itself so I can be a little bit more surgical. When I listened to the delay on Jared Leto's voice, I heard not only is it band limited. So rolled off at the bottom, rolled off at the top, but we also have this bell curve up here to make it quite a bit more brash. In heaven and hell, heaven and hell. Versus in heaven and hell, heaven and hell. It creates this nice presence and bite from the delay without it being too sibilanty. Also, to help it not be too sibilanty, because I still want some of that bright sibilant frequency area, I have elected to run a de-esser on just the delay portion. I have a separate de-esser for just the delay track. You can see the delay de-esser working right here. We were the victims of ourselves. So you don't hear the S's in the delay like you do in the main track. It creates this softer sound of the delay, even though we want that presence and that bite out of it. And I've created a little bit of a deviation on the right side so that it widens the sound of the delay. Here is this passage completely dry. We were the victims of ourselves. Here it is with the delay, but I'm going to take the deviation out. We were the victims of ourselves. If you're listening in headphones, you'll notice that the repeats of the delay are right in the center. Now, if I go to 0.3, just a little bit of deviation, you're going to hear the delay widen over the main track. We were the victims of ourselves. It helps focus that main track and get the delay out of the center. So you have a bit more bite out of the lead vocal, and the delay doesn't walk on the sibilance of the lead vocal as much when you have just a little bit of deviation, even though you've got a tempo locked delay. And here are the reverb choices that I made. First, we've got on bus 2, this here short reverb. It's only a 200 millisecond reverb. Maybe the children of a lesser God. There it is brought out. Between heaven and hell. And I'm using a little bit of chorus on it as well, just prior to the verb itself. Not much. Maybe the children of a lesser God. It creates a bit of pitch deviation on the lead vocal itself added in. So it's kind of like things are doubled, but more precise. And you hear that sort of effect on Jared's voice as well. And then I've got a separate reverb to this one that's a little bit longer. Here's this one. Maybe the children of a lesser God. So I've got one that's short and kind of slappy, and they're the same reverb, but they are different in their settings. This is a plate reverb, which is a very different reverb than like a hall. And I actually have it longer. It's a 1 second delay. Maybe the children of a lesser God between heaven. Both reverbs together. Maybe the children of a lesser. Turn down to taste. Maybe the children of a lesser God between heaven and hell. Now, let's add in the delay and the other vocals. Maybe the children of a lesser God between heaven and hell. Heaven and hell. Now, for the dreams at the beginning. Dreams. I'm running a second delay. I have the ambient delay that we have everywhere else, but then I've also got the same plugin on the actual track. So if we look here, I've got it as an insert on the track instead of routed over through a bus to an aux track. Now really all that means is that when I run it on the track, the delay signal is blending with the original signal. When I run it on an auxiliary track, it is being routed to another track. It is adding to the original signal. And I did that because I'm only using it once, but we've got it set to half note. We have nothing taken out of the signal as far as EQ, but the sound itself has been very band limited, like I've done other sections before. It kind of gets walked on a little bit in my version with the improv I do, but it still sounds super cool. Thanks so much for joining me for unpacking Jared Leto's sound in this song. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, if you'd like more help with your own voice and vocal production, click the link below and join my free voice course, and I'll help you discover what your voice can really do.